So I started out in the office furniture world. Moved into financial solutions, very much focused at the chief financial officer and helping them to embrace electronic payments and get rid of those pesky checkbooks. And then eventually I ended up in retail tech. Fundamentally, what I'm focused on is helping retailers finesse that customer journey to grow their retail sales, but to keep their costs down.
Meet Georgia Leybourne, Chief Marketing Officer at Linnworks. With over 20 years of experience in digital commerce, she's a seasoned expert in helping retailers scale smartly, balancing growth with operational excellence. From marketing to tech innovation, she's helped top retailers turn complexity into competitive advantage.
The AI equivalent of that is now injected with personality and humor and all that kind of good stuff. It's way improved over what it was before. There are companies who specialize in that and offer it as a packaged service. So actually, to go international, you can be tiny. You can be a single man entrepreneur and still go international if you embrace.
Hey, everyone out there. My name is Alan Chen, CEO of FreeCashflow.io, and welcome to Profit Powerhouse, the podcast where we sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs and business owners and great marketing executives out there to uncover the secrets behind their success. We're here to learn what drives their growth, the challenges they overcome, and how they master their finances. Our goal, to help you achieve the same success while maximizing your profit. All right, let's dive in. Today on Profit Powerhouse, I'd like to introduce you to Georgia Leybourne, Linnworks Chief Marketing Officer. She has spent 20 years in supply chain, logistics, and joined Linnworks from Transporeon, having previously worked for Manhattan Associations. She brings significant experience in digital commerce and has a diverse background that includes marketing, customer services, sales, and project management. She's dedicated to creating frictionless consumer journeys, enhancing revenue for retails, B2B wholesale, and DTC operations. Georgia holds a BA in Business Studies, a marketing diploma, and is a fellow of the Charter Institute of Marketing. Georgia, welcome to Profit Powerhouse.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Alan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to learn so much about you. Can you just share, first of all, a little bit more about your background and what inspired you to become who you are today?
I can. It was really interesting listening to you do that intro. I was like, oh my goodness me, who is this woman? And then I realized it was me. It was very
It was definitely
exciting
you.
to
If
hear.
anything, I undersold it.
Yeah. No, it was lovely to hear. So yes, I have been in the retail tech space for more years than I like to remember. I've sort of covered customer service, sales, marketing, but fundamentally what I'm focused on is helping retailers finesse that customer journey to grow their retail sales, but to keep their costs down. It's like that double whammy of growing your revenue potential, but keeping those costs down to a dull raw. And what's the difference between those two things? Margin. And that's what we really want to promote for your business. So I started out, I graduated from university like 35 years ago, Alan, and I first started out in life selling office chairs and office chairs and desks. So I started out in the office furniture world. I worked for Steelcase up in Grand Rapids, Michigan for a long time ago. Moved into financial solutions, selling, again, software, but very much focused at the chief financial officer and helping them to embrace electronic payments and get rid of those pesky checkbooks. And then eventually I ended up in retail tech. And I've really enjoyed the growth of e-commerce over the last 15, 20 years. Absolutely fascinated by how to create a sublime shopping experience for the consumer online. And I guess if your audience are in this space, they will know better than anybody how fast this industry is changing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any big challenges you face along your career, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I think anybody who embraces the retail space will know about uncertainty and volatility. And for those of us who work specifically in supply chain, that has just had a never ending spate of unexpected occurrences. For me, I think the biggest challenge that I've had in my personal career is managing the cultural nuances of the 3 or 4 countries that I've lived and worked in. I grew up stateside, but as you can probably hear from the accent, I'm very British. So I've spent a long time living in the UK. but I've also lived on the continent and spent time in France and worked internationally. I've also managed the APAC region. So really getting to grips with those cultural nuances is probably the biggest challenge that I've had. You cannot underestimate the importance of messaging appropriately for the market that you intend to enter and sell your wares in.
Got it. So I may not look like it because I'm a CPA, but actually back in COVID, I also dabble in a little bit of drop shipping, right? Back in the everyone did when they were
Yep,
just at home and bored and nothing to do. So I started selling all kind of these widgets, right? From like Alibaba, from China, and wasn't very good at it
yep,
because I don't think I had a very clear marketing message, right? And at that time, and I can't imagine doing it now in this kind of multi-channel environment that we're in, right? Back then, it was just like, oh, just pop up a Shopify store and you can get some sales, right? Just maybe do it on some Facebook ads,
absolutely.
but it's so much more complicated now, right, Georgia? What would you say right now is the foundational steps for e-commerce owners to start business now when they have to worry about so many channels they have to sell in?
Well, it's really interesting that you should mention that time of COVID because I think a lot of people tried their hand at
Yeah.
online selling. And you actually mentioned one of the crucial elements of setting up an e commerce business is indeed the marketing side of things. It's setting out your stall, getting your message across the airwaves, cutting through the noise, and really engaging with that potential consumer through the web fundamentally. So I think marketing is a massive element that anybody entering e-commerce needs to consider very, very carefully. But the other thing that I fear people leave as a secondary element to look at is the operation itself. When you first start out in e-commerce and you're talking about one or two orders here or there, very easy to do things manually and to consider every single transaction in its own right. But if your business takes off and if you start to grow and those orders start to come in, you cannot afford to be doing that manually. A lot of accidents will happen, errors will be made, the costs will escalate, and your margins will become eroded. So the big bit of advice I have for anybody looking at e-commerce as a startup or indeed as a growth opportunity, make sure you get the basics right from day dot. Because if that business goes viral, if it takes off, you're going to want to ensure that you've got the basics in place so that you can really start to get some economies of scale as those orders start to pile in.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I remember when I was just doing like 10 orders a day, right? At home trying to like box 10 orders, and it took me all night, right? Because I didn't have any kind of fulfillment center when anyone working with me to do it. It was just a one-man show, right? And I think a lot of entrepreneurs out there are, right? They're trying to be a marketing leader, they're trying to be an operation leader, they're trying to be sales, they're trying to learn the website design over there. At what point, Georgia, do you think an e-commerce owner like that should kind of diversify, their skill set, right? Say, hey, I actually can't do it all. Is there like a revenue level target they should be aiming at? Is there a certain magic point in part of their journey that they're like, hey, I need to go find a person to do fulfillment for me. I need to find a marketing leader. I need to find a guy who's great at advertisement, great at sales. What have you seen from your experiences? It's a good turning point in that journey.
Gosh, I've seen so many different
Well, I
scenarios
know. That's
pan
what I
out.
want to
And
hear.
yeah, and pretty much every single organization that I speak to, they tell me in hindsight they left hiring too late, that they should have started hiring sooner. They should have bitten that bullet. But of course, with staffing being such a big overhead, we're all reluctant to add too many staff before we're absolutely sure that we've got the numbers right. It's interesting because Linnworks was conceived about 15 years ago, and it was conceived specifically for those bedroom sellers who were hitting the big time, and suddenly everything was becoming a bit of an operational nightmare. The moment at which one needs to consider staffing, systems, possibly even real estate space to help them is when they have expanded the number of stock items that they're managing and the number of platforms that they're selling on. It's very rare in today's world to find someone who's selling on a single channel. You will
Yep.
find that most e-commerce vendors, yes, they've whipped up their Shopify account and they've got a fantastic direct to consumer website, but they're probably also selling on Amazon and or eBay and or Walmart. And actually on average, Most online retailers today are selling on 5 or 6 different channels. When you start to add that complexity of multi-channel, when you start to add in the complexity, especially in the US, of multi-location stockpiles, with a geography as large as the United States of America, it becomes very expensive to fulfill from one single physical location. So it's likely that a retailer will end up with multiple locations across the country. Once you've got a situation where your stock is dispersed and your selling channels are dispersed across more than one channel, that's the moment at which you've got to start to get serious about technology to really help keep that under control, processes that are documented and defined, and people to manage that process and technology for you. So that's the crux of it, is when you go multi, Alan.
Moti.
That's my
That's the thing.
moment.
Yeah, well, you can one channel, solo, multi, you need that team behind you, right, to get that going.
Absolutely. And it's
Absolutely. That's a
always
great
very
indicator
difficult.
for readers out there.
Yeah, and it's very difficult to do it based on revenue because that depends entirely on the average item value that you're selling. If you're selling something that's incredibly expensive, you're going to be reaching a revenue level vastly superior to someone who's selling dollar items. So it's really to do with the quantity that's being pushed through your network.
Yeah, like back then, people were selling those fidget spinners, right? They can sell tens of thousands of those little things, right? And then wouldn't still reach $100,000. So absolutely. Yeah, it sounds
Absolutely.
like inventory management is still such a pain in 2025, which is unbelievable with the number of kind of fulfillment solutions out there. Any tools that you have seen, Georgia, in this space, or just technology advancements that you can recommend listeners out there to help take away some of that inventory management pain?
Yeah, it's extraordinary because when we run an annual survey, Alan, and pretty much top of the list every single year is inventory management. And I think it's because, well, I've got a couple of theories, but for me, we cannot underestimate the importance of inventory. If you think about shopping, and I'm a professional shopper, trust me when I
Another
say
title
that.
to add to your list.
A professional shopper online. At the end of the day, I want your inventory. That's what I want. So your customer, to satisfy them, what they want is to get their hands on your inventory. So the quicker you can get it to them, the more reliably you can get it to them, and the more safely you can get it to them, the better. So when you think about it, that actually makes inventory really high up on the priority list in terms of
Absolutely.
taking care of it,
Mhm.
knowing where it is, figuring out how to get it from A to B, and making sure it doesn't get damaged in transit. And it all goes part and parcel with the communication that you have with your customer. And this is where, and I hope this won't be seen as a shameless plug, but this was why Linnworks was conceived 15 years ago, was to help multi-channel retailers get to grips with their inventory in a virtual centralized capacity, real time visibility of what you have and where it is and how you can get it from A to B. That's what we're all about, helping retailers do in a really, really cost effective fashion. It doesn't matter how many channels you sell on, and it doesn't matter how many physical locations you have. Virtual is the name of the game. And the most important thing you should be doing is managing your inventory in a virtual pool, which is synced across all of your channels. So you sell something on Amazon, it updates the stock picture on your D2C website or in your store. It's just imperative that you keep a track of that inventory at all times, coming in from the supplier, going out to the consumer. And you can do that from a virtual perspective. But that you can't afford to not have control of your inventory.
That makes so much sense. I seen so many brands and clients, right? They just grow so fast, right? They're one day, next day they wake up, they're like, "Hey, I'm $1 million business. How am I gonna handle the inventory
Yep.
management needed across all these channels?" And it's very hard for them. They scramble. They don't have the experience to do so. And then a very common question we always get, Georgia, is like, it's imagine a US based brand, right? And they're like, "Hey, I have so much demand overseas, but I'm very afraid to take that next step." And you kind of alluded to this a little bit too. Is there a point where you would kind of advise them to kind of test international waters?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things about international, and you mentioned it earlier on, Alan, every single individual who sets up an e-commerce business will have an area of specialty of their own. They cannot be a specialist at all things. So you'll probably find that they are either very good at domestic or they might have international experience. They might be very good at marketing but not have any logistics experience. The great thing about retail is there's this whole ecosystem out there of players who can offer third party solutions to help retailers who don't specialize in that particular area. So, take international as an example. A lot of domestic retailers will think, oh, well, if I want to set up overseas, I'm going to need a warehouse and I'm going to need trucks to deliver and I'm going to need people and staff. There are few retailers who don't have any footprint overseas whatsoever. They're working with a partner, and there are partners who specialize in the admin side of going international, the physical delivery of going international, all of the admin and regulation and conversions and translations. There are companies who specialize in that and offer it as a packaged service. So, actually, to go international, you can be tiny, tiny, tiny. You can be a single man entrepreneur and still go international if you embrace partnerships in the appropriate way.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense there. I also get this question, Georgia, of like small brands, right? Though the one that's just starting out that says, "Hey, how do I compete with all these big players in the world that can wield all this power and operational strength? Like, what do I need to do to stand out in the marketplace when competition just seems so fierce out there, you know? And either they're afraid to go big or they're afraid to even get started. What do you say to these people? Is there still room for them in 2025 for them to get going?
There is absolutely room. And this is where, we talked about uncertainty and volatility, but you know something? There's great innovation in retail. This is where marketplaces come into play. Again, you can be the tiniest vendor with a brand that's completely unknown to man nor beast. You can embrace a marketplace strategy and think about boutique marketplaces. Think about the Etsy's of the world or even re-commerce sites. There are quite a few re-commerce marketplaces available. Doesn't necessarily have to be the big kind of agnostic, Amazons of the world. You could go for a specialist boutique marketplace, but they have money, engagement, customers, brand awareness out there in the marketplace just waiting for the beautiful product that you have to offer. So you can help yourself by joining a marketplace community to expand the coverage of your product and to find new customers quite easily.
That's great to know and very inspiring to hear that you still believe in them in today's like competitive environment that we're in. Yeah, Georgia, if you don't mind settling debate for me. So we have guests from both end of the spectrum. Some who said, "Hey, Amazon, Etsy, these marketplace place is the holy grail. You should always start on those." And there's the other side that says, "Hey, in today's fast-moving world, you got to go viral, baby. You got to be on social media first. TikTok is the holy grail that you should be relying on, right? Because TikTok is the fastest trending. You can get a 30-second
Yeah.
video up, and bam, if it goes viral, hey, your store's going gangbusters. You probably can't even keep up. Where do you see yourself on this on the spectrum? Are you an Amazon, Etsy marketplace gal, or are you more of a hey, go social media first, test the waters, see where your product lands type of person?
Oh, that's such a difficult question. It's like
Yeah, but
it's
very
like being given
realistic
a choice.
today's environment, right?
But
They because Amazon
I
comes with higher fees, but it's more established. There's the SEO
yeah.
behind it already, right? But then, hey, if you're great on TikTok, you see those influencers, right? They're blowing up there.
Yeah, but it's like being taken to a candy store and saying, "Right, choose your favorite." It's like, "Oh my goodness, I don't know where
Yeah,
to
I mean,
start."
of course, you
Um
want to go, you want to take it all, but when you're just starting out, you got to invest somewhere, right? Either time, resources,
So
limited resources.
so so yeah, and I've got a couple of almost, contradictory bits of advice here because one bit of advice I've always had is you need to walk before you run. So don't bite off more than you can chew. And that probably means choosing one marketplace, getting yourself established, getting that running smoothly, and then adding a second or a third or a fourth versus what I call you gotta be diversified. there's too much risk associated with single channel selling. I mean, Amazon is a formidable platform, and if you've got what I would call a run of the mill product that's not kind of out there in terms of uniqueness or it's like a commoditized element, then Amazon is going to be a phenomenal place for you to sell. But what happens if you get blacklisted by Amazon because you haven't followed all of the rules that they
Mm,
insist you follow?
yes.
Then suddenly your sales just take a dive bomb because you were a single. So that's why I think diversification is key. It's also horses for courses. There are gonna be some products that suit Amazon beautifully. There are gonna be others that are absolutely crying out for a TikTok potentially viral opportunity. And one of the things, Alan, that drives me insane is when people say TikTok is all about Gen Z. Well, I am not Gen Z. I'm 56 years old and I buy off TikTok. I mean, let's not marginalize the consumers that are using this great channel. I have great fun on TikTok scrolling for what I would call the nice to haves. TikTok for me isn't a need to have. That's about entertainment. It's about finding things that you didn't know you needed. Whereas Amazon, I go for the commodity that I've run out of. As a retailer, that's what you need to think about as you choose the marketplace that you go to sell on. Are you a known commodity that people will find if you put
Mm.
your listing up correctly? Or do you need to kind of need a bit of razzmatazz of the social media element to get you going? It just depends on who you are and what you're selling.
No, that's a wonderful insight, Georgia. And for me personally, I go on TikTok and I'm like, hey, I'm eyeing this amazing nugget ice maker right now, right? And I want chewable ice, like the kind you get at like Sonic or Chick-fil-A here in the US. I'm like, this is amazing. And then I would get demonstrations from influencers that says like, oh, this is how you use it, this is how you clean it, and all these things that makes me want to buy it more. Whereas in Amazon, I go there and check because I want to know, hey, there's more products that selling Amazon. Now I want to read some reviews and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think TikTok is what really starts me and makes me like think, hey, I want this product. It even puts it in my mind before I go search for it on Amazon. So I can see why it's so connected, the two, right? Whereas if you only start on TikTok and you don't sell on Amazon, you might lose a sale if I just go on Amazon, search it, decide that, I'm going to trust these reviews and buy from this listing. Well, if that listing is yours, then you make money neither way, right? But then if you're only on TikTok, if you're only going that way, you lose money as soon as I leave that platform alone.
And interestingly, you've just summarized a phenomenon within the marketing world in general, regardless of what industry you're in. It's no longer about one single touch point. Marketing is about 5 to 7 touch points.
Hmm.
And it's the same with marketplaces and your direct website and your stores, if you've got them out there, the advertising that you're doing. You're trying to get under the skin of the consumer on social, on a marketplace, on your website, in an ad. You want to get under their skin so that when they realize they need that foot massager, they come and look for you because you've dangled enough carrots and they've eventually grabbed hold of one.
That's a great idea. I should look up a foot massager after this show. Yeah. So I mean, we can't talk about innovation in 2025, Georgia, without touching on AI. Right? AI is the buzziest of buzzwords in the last 3 to 4 years, I would say. And this year, I would say the keyword is AI agents. Right? What have you seen that has been most impactful? There's just tons out there, right? That's what makes it confusing. What have been most impactful? Maybe top two or top three to you that's been really, moving the industry and helping e-commerce owners, and even on the marketing side, what have marketing AI tools seen out there that's really moving the needle right now?
I mean, talk about a fast moving space.
Mm,
Listen, I had to really get my head around the concept of the agentic modern world that we live in because that's what they're calling it now.
absolutely.
I think again, if we look at marketing, which is for me such an important element of anybody who's running a business, AI has completely revolutionized the concept of paid and organic search. You will probably have noticed that when you go to do a Google or a Bing search these days, quite often the primary result that you get is an AI overview answering your question. Doesn't offer you a website, doesn't offer you a link through. It just basically tells you an answer to your question.
Yeah. Yes.
For me, for me as a business, I want my solution to that question to be the one that's coming up in their AI search, because that's the only way I'm going to get them to come and visit my website. Most B2B companies, such as myself, and most retailers will have seen a drop in web traffic because of the impact of AI, because these
Mm.
AI agents are now giving customers the answer they want without taking them to a website. So, one of the things that we're all having to do to shift is to make sure that we are right up at the top of those AI search results. And that's all about thought leadership, content, participating in a podcast such as today's, Alan. You see, you are furthering my cause by helping me get up that AI search, by being this third party independent kind of validator of that which I am saying, kind of thing. So I think AI search has totally changed the game in terms of advertising. The other thing, again, I don't want to mention my age too often, but I've actually always been against online chat and AI driven chatbots, because they've always been so useless, but they're not anymore. They are phenomenal. You cannot create a human chat 24/7 without putting a lot of staff behind it. The AI chatbots that are now available to support your business as a retailer are phenomenal. If you get the right one and invest in a really, really well known AI bot, they're almost better than humans, if I'm honest with you. And I cannot believe I'm saying that. So I think AI search, chatbots are huge, but in retail, where AI is really coming into its own, it's enabling you to finesse your marketing, your listings on a marketplace, your product descriptions. It can help you produce these mini soundbite videos that will help you promote your software, your product. It's just incredible what it's doing, and it's only going to get better.
No, Georgia, I would love to know if you have any funny anecdotes or stories in this space, right? I'll share one myself, right? I bought something from a clothing brand, and I had to do a return, so I called their kind of customer service number, and I thought I was talking to a real person. By the way, that's how real AI has become these days. I was like, they're like, "Hey, my name is Tim. This is calling this brand. What's going on?" I was like, yeah, I'm doing good. I'm trying to do a return." It's like, "Yeah, I got it. I can help you. Hey, what is that return number?" It was the smoothest conversation. And the
Yep.
whole time I thought I was talking to a real person. And I went through it, they helped me with it. They tell me they're gonna give me a return label, where to send it. The most like, I would say like, I don't know how to put it, but like, it was just so smooth that they just put, I get
Yeah.
think AI, they would put personalities behind it, right? Be based on a real person. So I thought I was just talking to Tim, this customer service associate. At the end of the message, where they were like, "Oh, just as disclaimer, you've been talking to a AI this whole time." I was like, "Oh, really?" If they didn't tell me that, I still think this is a real person. You know how in old days you call up your bank, they're like, "Please give me your PIN." Then you put it in.
Oh,
Okay, you put in the wrong PIN. Please try again. You're talking to a bot of some sort,
yeah.
right? Nowadays, impossible to tell the difference. Like, I felt embarrassed. Like, if they didn't tell me I wasn't talking to a real person, I would have been like, "Hey, Sin," as my wife's like, "Hey, I had some great customer service from this
Yeah.
Tim person at this clothing brand," right? It's almost too incredible, right? At this day and age.
And I think that it's almost getting better than what I would call the robotic humans. When you're, calling up an insurance company
Hmm.
or making a booking, and you get this kind of automaton who's clearly reading off a script.
Right.
Well, the AI equivalent of that is now injected with personality and humor and all that kind of good stuff. It's way, way improved over what it was before. I've actually literally in the last 24 hours discovered the virtual DJ within my Spotify account. And
Oh,
I don't know
yes.
if you have a Spotify account, but
I do. My
this
wife loves
DJ,
that feature.
how on earth they've got to know me so well so quickly. They just keep playing all of my favorite songs. I'm in love with it.
No, my wife loves songs from like the 80s and 90s, what my kids would
What?
consider oldies at this point, right? But yeah, the DJ is amazing. It curates like things you actually want to hear. But then, I'm sure you use this too, right? You can skip it and then it knows, okay, and I mean, they're not interested in this genre, right? So then next time they
Yeah,
won't even suggest anything close to that genre. Like it's a great tool to
absolutely.
use. Everyone who has, Spotify out there should really try it out, right? And Georgia, we're at the point of the podcast where we had to ask a few financial questions because that's what we're about, right? We really want to help out, listeners out there, owners, reach financial success, reach profitability for us. And I know coming from a marketing background, you may not know everything we're going to ask about, but that's totally fine. With your years experience, I'm sure you dabble in it and seen it, right? Our first question has to do with M&A. A lot of our e-commerce owners want to know what's a good point that they can sell their business, right? Is there a multiple? Is there an indicator? What have you seen from the marketing perspective that makes you think, wow, that company is right for selling, or it's time to kind of let it go? Either way.
Well, that's where margin really comes into play because the M&A opportunity is going to come in when there is sufficient margin in the business that you can get a multiplier that's going to make sense for the investor. What I find really interesting though is when there's I think that, and I don't know the right terminology, Alan, but
No, no
I
worries.
like what I like what I call complementary businesses coming together. Businesses where you get a force multiplier effect and 2 plus 2 equals 5 rather
Nice.
than strategic takeover where they might take over a company and then kind of break it down into parts and sell it off kind of thing. So for me, when we look at a business and how our business is growing, it's hugely important that we've got our operational costs under control and that we've got great products that are selling at a decent price so that you've got that margin. If you've got costs that are running out of control, if your products aren't up to par, if you've got bad customer satisfaction, that is not the time to be considering it. You've kind of got to tick the boxes on revenue flow, profitability, operation, and happy customers.
That's great advice there. And here I thought you were a CFO instead of a marketing leader here. Yeah, and then and another thing that always plague business e-commerce owners is the fact about sales tax and VAT. Have you ever had help, your clients or customers deal with those things, especially as they start expanding in multi states, multi countries? That's something that gives them a lot of headache, right, as they go into it because they're like, how do I deal with all these rates and different VAT situations they have to deal with? There's selling in Europe, selling in Australia. Any advice on how to do these compliance needs?
Yes, I have one piece of advice, and that is find a partner who takes all of that pain away. It's definitely not my area of expertise. It's not an area of expertise for Linnworks. I think the primary area where Linnworks gets involved in that is we have all of the fields necessary to manage the data flow, but we are not experts in tax compliance at all. But we do work with some very good agencies who are. So my advice is go out and find a partner to work with.
Find a great partner, find a trusted sidekick, right? Work together to make sure your
Yep.
compliance needs are all taken care of. Georgia, thank you so much for answering the questions. We would love to know what's next for you. Is there anything exciting coming up in the next couple years with the roadmap?
Yes, so we've got some great things coming up in the roadmap because we're always looking to improve the platform. We listen very closely to our customers and we listen very closely to the end consumers to try and facilitate what they're looking for. One of the things that I'm always very conscious of is that I sometimes find there's so much noise out in the marketplace that sometimes the retailers are running after the wrong thing. And I'll give you an example. Speed, next day delivery, same day delivery, everyone's hooked on it. Everybody like wants to provide 2-hour delivery. And actually the consumer is more interested in reliability than they are in speed. So one of the things that we're constantly trying to do is to uplift the functionality of our software to help retailers offer the choice and breadth of options for the consumer so that they can choose how to interact with you as the retailer. AI is offering us a lot of opportunity in the platform itself. And there are also some great things around inventory management. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of RFID and
Yep.
tags.
Yep.
It's a huge help for especially apparel retailers to track inventory. It's also very good for making sure of the source of the I can't think of the word, authenticity. That's the word I was after. It can be very good for traceability of the product itself. So AI, connecting with things like RFID and barcode scanning, that kind of thing. But lots and lots of opportunity for us in our portfolio.
And Georgia, I'm sure I kind of know the answer to this, but do you think there's still room right now in today's environment to kind of start out doing drop shipping, right, and make that into a viable
Oh,
business? Or do you think it's more of we need to get the inventory in, get shipping speed down and things like that that consumer kind of expect, right? Kind of like the Amazon Prime model.
I think drop shipping is a huge opportunity for certain vendors and for certain retailers. Again, it's horses for courses. It depends what stage your business is at and whether or not you want to be, drop shipping or delivering direct. That's a choice that you've got to make as a business. But no, drop shipping has a huge future. We actually work with two or three of the largest drop shipping platforms in the industry, who help retailers make that a reality for their business.
That's awesome to hear, right? A lot of folks says, "Hey, I have very low capital to start this business with. What can I do, right, to really kick it off?" Well, everyone always recommend drop shipping because it's low overhead, right, in order to kind of dip their toe in the e-commerce journey. So it's great to know that's still a viable option in today's world.
And I know an entrepreneur who has one employee,
That's very common.
multi-million pound retailer, never touches the inventory. He's just facilitating the transaction. He's a marketing guru extraordinaire. He can basically sell anything to anyone, but he doesn't have any inventory whatsoever.
Yeah, those are the most amazing people, Georgia. Like, I'm not a marketing type, but the ones that can just, sell you a cup of water, right, or some for thin
Or
air is incredible because they just convince you to buy whatever it is they're selling, and you don't actually care about all the logistics and things that happens after. You're like, I just want to click buy because this person has convinced me so
yeah,
much about it, right? And that's what I think the power of
absolutely.
the influencer world right now is that they're able to influence their audience to follow through with what they believe in and their goals and what they're trying to do for the world, right?
And interestingly, for those kind of people, it's TikTok that's proving to be their playground because they know how to make that a reality.
I know, and I'm a culprit too, right? I really believe in the TikTok model and the whole TikTok shop right now that's popping up, which is actually helping a lot of folks. That's like, hey, I don't know how to get started. Well, it's as simple as making a minute or 30-second video, putting yourself out there and give it a try. See if you resonate with folks,
Absolutely.
right? And they're like, yeah, I'm also a single mom that also likes this product, right? And then they buy from people that they feel like in the same demographic that they are in, right? It's kind of incredible out there the opportunity that's available
Yeah.
for folks. Yeah, and then as part of our last part of our podcast, we always ask for that one final advice, right? If you can put yourself in your shoe, maybe from 30 years ago, right, Georgia, and you're just starting out, if you can give one piece of advice to someone just starting their career or entrepreneurial journey, what would it be? Just three simple steps to get started, three simple blocks that says, hey, in 30 years, I want to be a chief marketing officer, but it feels so far away. It feels so far fetched. Maybe I'm just a high school student, a college student, and I want to be Georgia one day. How do I get there? What are the three simple steps, two, one, whatever it is that I need to follow that get me to that place eventually in the future? How do I set my foundation?
Well, on a personal level, I've had a mantra that I've followed since I graduated university. And that mantra is do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Reliability and following through is absolutely paramount to gain trust. People buy from people. So I think that personal credibility is a massive thing. But on a slightly broader spectrum, my advice to anybody going into the retail world, do not underestimate the importance of your inventory because at the end of the day, that is what your customer wants to get their hands on. So it's really, really important that you're managing your inventory in a cost effective way, protecting it and protecting you, and making sure that you've got that operational efficiency so that you don't lose control of your business.
That makes a lot of sense. Do what you're gonna say and make sure you manage that inventory very well, right? And that's part of doing what you're saying is making sure you have inventory to sell to folks when you say it and across your multiple channels. Georgia, that was fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and insight with us. I'm sure our listener will get a lot of values from it today. Um, Is there anything you like to, in the last minute, shout out or let our audience know how to connect with you and get more advice from you if they want to?
Absolutely. So Linnworks is here to help anybody in retail who's looking to bring some efficiencies to their operation, their retail operations. And I would be delighted to offer a health check, a free health check, to anybody who wanted to get in touch. I'd suggest you need to be of $1 million plus in terms of GMV, because otherwise our solution isn't going to be the right one for you. But do feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Georgia Leybourne, or Instagram or TikTok. I'm on all of the channels, and I'm sure that Alan will provide my email details at the end of this podcast.
Absolutely. We'll put all the details for Georgia on how to contact her in our show note below, along with her first 10 listeners who are in the qualified range that Georgia just mentioned. Please reach out. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to get a free health check from Georgia, very complimentary, and just for being a listener of Profit Powerhouse. Georgia, thank you so much for being on today. It was amazing, very, very insightful, and I'm sure listeners got a ton of value from you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.